Actors all want to be musicians. Every single one of them. Fueled by massive egos and drunk on past successes, they are all terrible. Except for Count Dracula himself, the Metal Knight, Christopher Lee.
I said blood of Saxon man, I said the blood of the Saxon man.
So we've hinted at this episode at least once. Actually, the only thing that competes with Warwick Davis rapping is Hammer horror legend Christopher Lee singing power metal, which he does so often that we're just gonna give a whole episode to him later on.
I said the blood of the Saxon man.
Twice. There is literally an entire subgenre of power metal, sometimes called fantasy metal, that rolls deep with the Hobbit references. And Christopher Lee, Saruman, has an entire side career in heavy metal.
I said the blood of the Saxon man.
Yeah, dude just needs his own episode. And so, finally, we made this promise last week. So if we break 100,000 subscribers, we will do a This Exists episode either about Skyquakes or Christopher Lee. We have 100,000 subscribers. Skyquakes, your day will come. Today belongs to Doku.
Necron would rule in the unholy name of cosmic chaos, and this time he would reign supreme.
Christopher Lee initially rose to fame through his portrayal of Dracula in the Hammer horror films of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Best known today as Saruman or Count Dooku, depending on exactly what kind of nerd you are, he was 87 years old when he released his first symphonic metal album, Charlemagne, by the Sword and the Cross.
Like my fathers before me, I shall fight for the holy city.
This wasn't Doku's first rodeo. He sang on the soundtrack of The Wicker Man in the 70s and starred in the musical The Return of Captain Invincible in 83.
Bottoms up, stirrup cup, it'll put you in the pink, and all you have to do is drink, 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 drink.
As an aside, his character in that film is named Mr. Midnight, and this is Alan Arkin singing about it.
Believe me, that no mother ever cried for midnight.
Point is, word was out that Christopher Lee had chops, and it just took Italian fantasy metal band Rhapsody of Fire to unlock their true power. Yes.
Necron would rule in the unholy name of cosmic chaos, and this time he would reign supreme.
Yes.
I am wearing the clothes of a king who is also a priest.
Yes, you are. And so a new generation of fans discovered Christopher Lee, just as Christopher Lee was discovering the perfect outlet for his gloomy bass tone, releasing a series of concept albums about King Charlemagne and Christmas albums.
Rushing as we go, and the house that knows the way to hell is painful and slow, crying all the day.
Jingle Hell debuted at number 22 on the Billboard Hot 100, making Christopher Lee the oldest ever charting performer in Billboard history at 91 years old, which really cuts to the heart of why he is the coolest and Bruce Willis is a dork.
Now I know he ain't looking, not when that band is cooking.
Also a dork, Johnny Depp. Also Hasselhoff.
Ooh, jump in my car. I wanna take you home.
Eddie Murphy. There are precious few actors that have made the leap that so many have leapt to unintentionally hilarious results. Creative people are rarely creative in only one capacity, but they are also normal human beings who can only apply Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule to one discipline. Eddie Murphy and David Hasselhoff and Johnny Depp picked acting. And whenever you think of their individual performances or late career choices, they worked hard as hell. But when you've achieved your dream, you sometimes realize that you've neglected some earlier passion. Your dream is now your job. I spent my 20s mostly completely indifferent to sports until I realized I had spent a decade as a music journalist, and suddenly sports were the only thing that I cared about, because music was my day job. What I'm saying is that I am the David Hasselhoff of dudes who write about Canadian punk.
I've been looking for freedom. I've been looking so long.
Which is why Christopher Lee is such a glorious exception. Most actor-musicians are returning to some earlier love. He is a man in his 90s who literally just discovered that heavy metal is the ideal outlet for his voice and his weird fascination with killing Saxons.
I shed the blood of the Saxon men. I shed the blood of 4,000 Saxon men. I shed blood of Saxon men. I shed the blood of the Saxon men.
What I'm saying is that Christopher Lee's music reads as an authentic new expression in his storied career. And I'm less convinced by Scarlett Johansson covering Tom Waits.
Money in your pocket, your top hat on your head.
What do you think? Are all actor-musicians terrible? Why or why not? Is it possible to truly capture what an impossibly cool dude Christopher Lee is? Let us know what you think in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for new episodes of This Exists every week. Be excellent to each other. Last week was our Halloween episode all about melt movies, a particularly gruesome and pretty fun subgenre of body horror, and whether or not they actually have any meaning. I also asked if we could break 100,000 subscribers by you guys sharing videos, and it happened, which is crazy. We're so powerful together. Thank you very much for your support of this show. I cannot believe that 100,000 people have clicked subscribe next to a photo of my face. You guys are nice. This is cool. This is really cool. Thank you very much, though, sincerely. To comments now. Patrick Barberchek brings up a great point about the obsession in the 80s visually with green, slimy, toxic waste, and the way that our fears about 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl were reflected through things like the Ninja Turtles and Toxic Avenger and melt movies. I think it's a great point. Ultimately, what I tried to say in that video is that horror films tend to depict the particular fears of a given era, and while obviously my argument was that melt movies don't depict any fear other than melting, it is interesting that there was this sort of trend of slimy shit messing up our lives, and that weirdly all of that got turned into kid-friendly cartoon entertainment, which I was talking to someone about recently. It's very strange that Beetlejuice and the Ninja Turtles and all this really, really dark, initially adult entertainment was seen by some executive and was like, kids will love that. Kids will love Toxic Avenger. That's a movie where a kid's head gets popped by a car backing up over it. Wicked kids entertainment. Toxie's cool. Eidolon Vector hopes that all us or you or we millennials appreciate the ability to watch Eraserhead on DVD, and depicts a move to Los Angeles to go to a store just to be able to rent Eraserhead. And this brings up a super interesting point that Justin, who shoots and helps direct this show, always makes, which is that we are the only generation that grew up with video stores. Our parents' generation didn't have them when they were growing up, and they'll be way done by the time we're popping out babies, but we grew up with video stores being this super important part of our experience. And a lot of the movies that we talked about in last week's episode were made famous for me personally by their box covers, sitting on the shelves at the Video 99 or Rogers Video near my house. I can particularly picture the Scanners cover, which I don't think we talked about in that episode, but just that like shot of Michael Ironside sort of at the end of the movie, like, oh, it was so awesome when I finally saw that movie. Six Blade Runner, or what looks to be sort of a leady version of Blade Runner, disagrees with my point that body horror is the most metaphorically loaded horror subgenre, that it's simply just the most personal. And I'm actually inclined to agree that maybe I misspoke and overstated just how metaphorically important body horror is, but that what I was really trying to get at is that by being more personal, it maybe feels more intimate, and as a result resonates more. So when you see Night of the Living Dead and you think about the war in Vietnam, if you're my age, that resonates in a strictly historical sense, whereas the fear of dying and falling apart depicted in The Fly is something that I live with every day because I'm getting a lot of gray hair and I'm terrified of death. Jay Asarian asks if this show should have its own subreddit, which is, I know, something that Idea Channel does, and probably a few other YouTube channels that are also cool like this one. And we discussed the idea of doing a book club on Goodreads, which I was starting to set up, but now I'm wondering if a subreddit is just the better way to do all of it. We could continue to have discussions about the episode that might aggregate a little bit better than they do in the YouTube comments. We can have the book club on the subreddit, and that might allow a freer sort of flow of suggestions between you guys and me and everyone who watches the show. So I'd initially said Goodreads. I know I'm asking a lot of questions now in the episode, but I feel like we got a good thing going here, and I'm really psyched about it. So I hope that's not bothering anyone. Would you guys want a subreddit instead for the show where we could, share ideas for the show and, share book recommendations and do the Shit Heel Book Club? Would that be better than Goodreads? I don't know how many other people use Goodreads as religiously as I do. So let me know what you think about that. I think it's a great point. Thank you. This week's Sam's Club book recommendation is tied to what I am currently obsessed with, which is the election that's happening today in America when we shoot this, the today, not the today of your current today, wherever you are. And Richard Ben Kramer's What It Takes, the greatest political book ever written. I'm on a real tear right now. I'm reading mostly about Canadian politics, but I've spent a lot of time reading about American politics, which for a long time I thought were much more sexy. And this book, of course, really sells that. It's the greatest campaign book ever written. And recently someone was tweeting that it's like $1.99 for the Kindle version on Amazon. So that's not a recommendation to not buy it from a mom and pop shop, which is obviously my jam, but not everyone's full of money, and $2 is not a lot for the greatest campaign book ever written. So please read What It Takes by Richard Ben Kramer, and I hope you voted if you're American today. It's too late now though.